Hey, welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast. What I wanted to do is create a YouTube video first, and then I'll just release the audio edition as well. But what I wanted to show you was how to get a good residency recommendation. And I think there's a misconception that it's really the quality of your recommender, that if your recommender is a good writer, then you're going to get a good recommendation. If they're not a good writer, then you don't necessarily get a good one. But what I'm going to tell you is that it's actually very different in that you have a ton of control, not over what they write, but you have a ton of control over the quality of the writing, the quality of how well they know you, and all these things. And it's your responsibility. And I created a document for you to help you with this. So to get to it, you can go to memorizingpharmacology.com and you hit residency, and this is going to come up called Residency Help. And then you can click on that, and then you'll come here. And this is the help that I want to give you is a single page document. And what it does is it shows you how you should be writing this recommendation request. So the first thing you do is you just say, hey, will you write it for me? And it's not just will you write it for me, will you write me a strong recommendation, or will you write me a very positive one? Because if they just write you one, then you just get a check mark. And if it comes down to, well, everything being the same, I want this person over the other because their recommendations were stronger. Now, there's a lot of times you don't have choices, especially if you're going to apply to critical care, or you're saying you're critical care and interested in it, then you have to have your APP person who does critical care, or that preceptor, or you really should. If you're interested in peds, then the peds specialty, and so forth. Now, I just had one of my students, I just finished 2 recommendations for her. It didn't take me a very long time because my undergraduate major is in English, and I have graduate work in English as well. So I love to write. You're making the assumption that your preceptor likes to write, or your recommender likes to write. And just poll a couple of people that you know and find out how many of them really like to write. The answer is probably not many. So what we want to do is we want to take this from the perspective that the recommender is very busy. The recommender may not remember a lot about you. The recommender might not have had a lot of interaction with you because you're getting the site preceptor, but the actual person that spent the most time with you is somebody different. So what I want to go through are the things that you need to put in the email after you get the, oh yeah, I'd love to write a positive or a good recommendation for you. And I've put this into a PDF and a doc file that's on memorizingpharmacology.com/residency help. So the first thing I kind of want to do is change your kind of perception of what a residency recommendation really is. A residency recommendation is the preceptor or the recommender answering residency interview questions for you. So I'll say it again. Just as you're going to go in front of the committee and you're going to go and interview, a recommendation is simply a document where someone else answers the residency interview questions for you. So I figured this out just a couple hours ago because somebody said, hey, I started using yours and Brandon's book to help me answer the questions that I'm going to need to help the preceptor with as they're writing. So I was like, oh my gosh, what a BFO, a blinding flash of the obvious that I didn't see. So I'm going to talk in terms of the book and some of the questions and things like that. So let's start with the help itself. So the first thing is I've got the PDF document and docx, and I've got a big note. So your recommender may or may not know this. When I submitted my first review, I didn't actually submit it. I just said, okay, well, I just want to kind of save it and then go on to the next one. And then I saw the next one, and this is for the same person I'm writing a recommendation for, but a different residency site. So I had to I was like, oh my gosh, I have to rewrite all of this stuff for them. It looks like it's the same. If I had, and this is what I did next, if I had hit the submit button on the first recommendation, it will auto-populate all of the next recommendation for a different site except for this residency specific question at the end. So the question goes something like, now specifically about this residency, why is the person good at it? And that didn't auto-populate until I hit the submit button. So I don't know if your recommender knows that. So if you're have a good relationship with them, just say, hey, Tony gave me this tip that you've got to hit the submit button on the first one, and then I know I'm asking you for 6 recommendations or 7 recommendations or 10 recommendations, whatever it is. It'll auto-populate all of them except for this one box. Okay, so that's kind of the first thing. I don't know how you tell a recommender not to use apostrophes, but some of the apostrophes Forecast can't handle, and it puts a question mark. So that comes up as she question mark, it question mark, and it just looks sloppy. And if you just don't use contractions, that's one way to solve it. But the other thing is that the recommender actually gets to review their work, and if they catch it, great, they go back and they can make it into these non-contractions. Or it does take some apostrophes, it doesn't take others. But just to let you know, there's kind of a little goofy bug that I saw in there. Okay, so here is the kind of template and how to do it. So the first thing you write is, Dear Recommender, thanks for agreeing to write a recommendation. The first deadline is blank. That is so important because you're assuming, oh man, they're going to get right on this. You know what? I'd be surprised if they didn't just start writing the recommendation right now. What they need to know is, when is the very first time they need to come back to this? Because to you, it's just, there's just one person, it's me, and I need 7 recommendations. Whereas I've heard of just recently a site that takes preceptors from 11 colleges of pharmacy. So you can imagine how busy they would be in terms of getting these recommendations out and all these deadlines. So the first deadline is what you want to make sure you put there. I just wanted to give you some notes about my APP experience if it helps save you some time. I only have 6 students a year, maybe 7, so I know them very well. This doesn't necessarily apply to me as much, but what I want to do is show you how you want to write those notes to remind them who you were, what you did, especially if the person writing the recommendation was not the person that spent a lot of time with you. That's especially what you want to do. And the numbers that you're going to see here correspond to the book that we just wrote, 100 Strong Residency Interview Questions, Answers, and Rationales. So again, what they're doing is answering residency interview questions for you. So the same question answers that work for the interview face-to-face will work also as answers for the preceptor to give on your behalf. So how does that work? I'm just going to go quick here to the Kindle book, and they're all numbered 1 through 100. And so if I say, okay, number 13 is one you need to look at, you just click on number 13 in the table of contents. It'll take you right there in the Kindle book and so forth. Okay. Instead of going from this page, because it's a little bit harder to see, I did write it here on in HTML. I'm just going to go to the PDF version here, just because it's a lot easier to see. Okay. So the very first thing you're going to put is, okay, you need to know what the questions are that the person writing the recommendation has to answer. Now there's a bank of qualities that they're going to have to just pick, and it works out to be like, you exceed, you were okay, you were bad, or no comment, or it's not applicable. And they fill in one of those radio buttons. Then on the far right hand side, they're going to write a little bit of blurb about 3 of those or more. And these don't have to be long, although they give you 6,500, I don't remember if it's characters or words, but there's a ton of space for that. And honestly, if you're a good writer, you should be able to do it in 3 articulate sentences. a little bit of explication on each of those, why the person was so good. Okay, so after that radio button section and after that little comment period, there are 5 big boxes. Okay, the first box, and these aren't the exact questions, there's much more to it. I didn't know if I was supposed to tell you or not. I'm not doing that. I just wanted to explain kind of their rationale and what they're thinking about. The first thing is to know that they want to standardize it. What they want to do is make sure that you're comparing apples to apples when you have 12 residents that interview, or that 12, no, it's going to be, this is before the interview, so you're going to have maybe 60 residency applications for a spot, whatever it is. And they want a person to be able to compare apples to apples, so they're going to have these standard questions. Okay? The first question basically says, or it needs an answer that says, this is how you increased your independence or autonomy throughout. With my academic rotation, that means maybe I showed them how to do the presentation, and then they did part of the presentation, and then they did all of the presentation. So that would be an increase in independence or autonomy. So in the residency book, 100 Strong Residency Questions, Answers, and Rationales, there's good answers in number 13, 20, 21, and 22. There's some other ones that have it, but I didn't want to, overload you. But these are good examples of how you express a change in independence and autonomy. And what you're doing is, in this email to this recommender, you're saying, during your rotation, number one, during your rotation, I felt that I did a good job of increasing my independence and autonomy through, and I gave you the example of where they would watch me teach to they would teach themselves. Okay. Strengths and weaknesses, it's actually divided into 2 questions, but there is a huge, huge mistake you can make here. The first is that these are my 2 self-perceived strengths, and figure out what your strengths are. And questions 9, 10, 13, 29, 30, and 31 all address strengths and weaknesses in the book. So you're going to say, I felt I was really strong at public speaking. And my evidence for this is that I got right up there and I spoke, and I was also very good at taking feedback. So when you talked to me about what I was doing, you told me maybe I should be using open-ended questions instead of yes or no questions. Then I took that feedback and then I worked on it. So you're just saying, these are my strengths, okay? And you're expounding on it. And then there's examples of how to do that. The next paragraph you want to give the recommender is, these are my 2 weaknesses, okay? And the weaknesses as I see them. But this is the huge mistake. Don't stop there. You have to say with each weakness what you're doing right now to fix it. Okay, so in the example questions we have in the book, we show you how to do this, but you must say, this is how I'm fixing it. I really struggled when I first got to your rotation with public speaking, but I've joined a Toastmasters group since, or I've asked for more responsibility in my next couple of APPEs or APPEs, where I asked for more opportunities to public speak. So if you leave this alone, you are writing your own death sentence. You must put what you're working on. And I'm smart enough to know that when somebody sends me a request, I'm not going to write, oh yeah, well, this person doesn't like to work with other people, or this person isn't really good at speaking in public. That is absolutely the worst thing I could possibly do for somebody that I'm writing a recommendation for. I'm smart enough to know, hey, I'm going to articulate what they did and then what we talked about for them to work on it, so that I don't end up with a negative. It should go 2 strengths in one box, 2 weaknesses, and then the plan of action to repair those weaknesses in that next box. And then you're going to put do your own research, think about it. Okay, well, when I was in that rotation, what did I do? What were the things that were my weaknesses? And what am I doing about them? And if you're not doing anything, then what is my plan to do something about them? But you must put that you're going to do something about it, or you are doing something about it. Number 4, these are my unique qualities. You feel like you are a unique person and you are unforgettable, I assure you that is not the case with the volume that you're going to have with many of these, especially the clinical sites. What you want to do is make sure that you've articulated what was unique about you. Forget hardworking and passionate and amorphous words. We've got some great answers to questions that are really unique, like being able to answer the question like, what's my favorite animal? What drug would I be? And those types of things, those are unique. And I'm not saying write down, by the way, my favorite drug is, oh, my favorite, pet is. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is really unique, okay? Things like, for example, I'm from Washington, D.C., and I'm in the Midwest. I have an English undergrad degree, and I'm in, well, pharmacy is not a STEM field. Pharmacology PhD is. But I've got a humanities background in what is a science field, and those types of things. Those are unique. I've got triplet daughters. That's unique. So when I was on admissions, I remember things like I drove or I delivered pizzas went to get myself through undergrad. I started driving a tractor when I was 14 or 13. Those were types of things that were unique. So you want to make sure that your unique qualities are actually unique and make sure to put them in there. And then the last one is going to take the most work, but it's going to provide the most value to you. This is why I chose this residency site. So we've got a couple of examples, number 4, number 69, and number 70. The reason this is so important is that this is the only thing that changes. So if you ask your recommender to write 10 recommendations, the first time they do it, they're going to have to answer those 4 questions. And then this one is blank each time they do the next one. And there's 2 things that you need to put in. The first thing you do is, why did you as an applicant pick the program? So for example, if there's a teaching component, teaching APPE students and pharmacy students in it, that makes a lot of sense that you would pick me as a recommender because I have a non-patient care academic rotation. How does the site that you were in at APPE match that site partially or fully? Okay, well, there are specific teaching components that we went over in my academic APPE that are going to match to the things that they're going to do in residency. It's supposed to absolutely make sense. And the words you just want to keep hammering home is fit. Why does this residency fit with the recommender and the experiences that you had with this recommender? Okay. Now, if you have 10 sites, you have to tell the person 10 stories. This is why this one fits. And they're not going to all be exactly the same. Like if you're doing AmCare, sure, they're going to be similar. But there's going to be unique parts of each of these sites that you need to write a little bit different for the next thing. So what you're going to do, and you put them chronologically in order of deadline. Okay, so you're saying, I want you to write 10 recommendations. And you're assuming that the person has time to write 10 in a row for you. And that may not be the case. If you've got some that are due in a couple of weeks, put those first so that the person can take a break and then go to the next one at a different time. But what you want to answer is, this is why I chose this first residency site. The deadline for this site is blank. Okay, I picked this program because, and then I felt that the activities I did in your rotation or as an employee with you fit this site because. Okay, you're putting all that in there as a paragraph, and then you do it for the second residency site and the third residency site and the fourth and so on. You have to put these in there because your preceptor is not going to look up the residency site, even if they could find it, right? They need to know why you picked it. So this goes all the way back to you have to know why you're picking it or have a good reason for it. If you start throwing an AmCare, a critical care, community, well, AmCare and community are kind of the same, that's fine. But I'm just saying you have to have this part because this is the one thing that they're going to look at, because this is the one thing that's personal to them. Okay, as a residency director, I would go right to this paragraph and see, did this recommender know why this person belongs in this site? And as soon as they see amorphous answers like passionate, hardworking, it would be great for any site, they know, you know what, they don't know our site. But if they see, oh, well, they know that there's a teaching component here and that maybe it's only for precepted students from this college of pharmacy, they're like, wow, this person really knows me. It's kind of like somebody saying, making an immediate connection with you where you say, oh, wow, yeah, I remember. Aren't you a fan of such and such? Oh, didn't you grow up here? And immediately you have that connection. So this is the biggest opportunity for you to help your recommender give you a great connection to the site. I'm telling you, nothing is more impactful than being able to write a unique paragraph for each site as to why this rotation belongs there. Okay? Then you're going to say thank you, put your name, your candidate, your school, and give a contact email, maybe a contact phone, and I would probably give them a Facebook Messenger if you guys are friends on Facebook. That actually is probably how I would get in touch with mine if I had any questions about it. Now, I know that the ones that I did already went out, and I know that she's going to get an email saying, hey, you know, we received it. But I'm telling you, it is so easy for you to make it easier for the recommender. And if you follow these steps, the recommender will have all of this information. But more importantly, when they go to click, you know, is this person organized? Does this person do things on time? If you're sending them this very detailed email ahead of time, they can write, man, you know, I might not remember what they did, but look at this. Look how organized they are. Look how little work I have to do. Wow, I really appreciate this person not making me have to, you know, start all this from scratch and try to figure it out. You are absolutely showing that you are an organized person and that you are the person that they are, you know, trying to recommend. Okay? So again, it kind of comes from a number of questions in the book, the Kindle 100 Strong Residency Interview Questions, Answers, and Rationales. If you treat it as you're helping someone succeed in the interview for you, which is what you're doing, then I think it makes it a lot easier. One last caveat before I go, make sure you have a good LinkedIn profile, because they may go right to you and go, okay, well, let me see who I know that this person knows, and maybe I can better know who they were if they couldn't remember or something like that. Okay, so again, these documents are all there for you at memorizingpharmacology.com/residency help. I optimized it not only for desktop but for mobile. So hopefully this is helpful. But I'm telling you, the recommendation is not out of your hands. It's actually very much in your hands. It's not, okay, well, I hope I get a good recommender. I hope I get a good recommendation. What you can do is create such a good package of information that it will look like you and the residency or the APPE preceptor, the employer, the professor, it'll look like, wow, you guys have a great relationship. You guys really know each other and they really know you. So if you want to picture this in your head, imagine the committee who has to read these recommendations, and imagine instead of us as letters, electronic letters going in, are us as people. And I wish I could use my voice. That's really kind of disappointing that I can't just do it in voice, because I would really prefer, and they could really hear, you know, my passion for the students that I had. But imagine us going in there, and imagine us being able to clearly articulate, this is how this student grew from when I first got to meet them to when they left my APPE. These are the two strengths that I think they have. These are some weaknesses that they have, but this is what they're doing to work on them. We've kept in touch after, and they've been doing a great job working on these two things that we identified. And I don't necessarily know that they're weaknesses anymore, but they were when I knew them. Here's what's really unique about them. Here is what I think you're just going to find that's really cool about this person, and you're going to be really excited to have them as a residency interviewee. And this is why I think they're such a great fit for your particular site, and it makes so much sense that they picked you, because as I'm looking, back on the experience we had and what you offer, I just feel like this is going to be a great fit. Now imagine that each of your recommendations does that, pops off the page like that. It really isn't that hard for it to happen, but it's in your hands. You have to do the work to give the recommender the materials that they need. And if you do that, you have a much, much better chance of getting a really strong residency recommendation. And then it comes down to getting a residency interview. And I think you'll have a much easier time if you've got great recommendations. So good luck, and hopefully this was helpful for you guys.